Christians. Looking at this comment, I will not respond to the incoherent part at the end, but I will address the beginning part. He says to me, "You are a Calvinist, I take it." And then he says, "We are not the elect. We choose to believe or not." No one says that you don't choose to believe or not. You do choose to believe or not. That is a fact. Then you say that we are not the elect. You might not be the elect, but the fact of the matter is the Bible is very explicit in talking about the elect, those whom God has elected, chosen, preordained, predetermined, predestinated, foreordained, foreknew to be saved before the foundation of the world, whose names were written in the Lamb's book of life before the creation of the world. So, my friend, I don't know what book you're reading, but it's not the Bible. You're reading the book of secular consciousness and secular humanism, and the carnal mind is at enmity against God. That's what you have. And that's okay. Many people are at enmity against God, and that's fine. You have that right to be. But I'm going to look at the first comment you make. You said, "You're a Calvinist, I take it." When people it's crazy how Christians try to make Calvinist and Calvinism a bad word. It's not. I'm a proud Calvinist. Because Calvin was a man of God. And it's funny that people never say this about Luther, when Luther was worse than Calvin in terms of his aggression at promoting the truths of the Bible, the true doctrines of the Bible, like election and predestination, which so many of you refuse to accept. See, the people who are always talking about their free will, they hate the parts when God says, "I shall" or "I will." Because that means that whatever God says he shall do or will do is absolute. But you never explain how when God's will contradicts your will, who wins out? So, and let me back up on this Calvinist thing again. Christians have no idea, Christians today, because most of us aren't very smart. Christians have no idea the contribution that John Calvin made. They have no idea the contribution that Chrysostom made, that Luther made, that Zwingli made, that John Knox made, that George Whitefield made. Most of you don't even know who those names are. Most of you don't. And I'm sure this person doesn't know. The first systematic theology ever written was written by John Calvin. The first Protestant systematic theology written by John Calvin at 26 years old. John Calvin wrote 22 volumes on the on the Old and New Testament. One of the most prolific Protestant writers ever. Calvin and Luther championed the Reformation, fighting against Romanism and Catholicism. And those two, along with all the other reformers, those two led the battle of Christianity against Satan, the flesh, and this world. So, Calvinism and being a Calvinist is not a bad word to me, my friend. You have no idea what Calvin taught. You have no idea what he did, what his contributions were, nothing. All you know is that you don't like to hear the word election, in spite of the fact that the Bible speaks about it throughout the entirety of the Word of God. And free will is never mentioned in the Word of God ever, except for in a free will offering, which has nothing to do with the free will that is exerted from the conscience of men. So, yes, I am a Calvinist in my theology. And you are most likely an Arminian in your theology because you have to be. If you are a Protestant, any Christian who is listening to me right now, if you are a Protestant, your theology is either Calvinistic or Arminian. And I don't mean Armenian, the nation of people, the Armenians. Arminian, Arminian. You are either an Arminian or a Calvinist. Every single professing Christian is one or the other. And one of these days, in the next couple of days, hopefully, I'm going to get around to explaining the difference between the two. But if you call yourself a Christian and a Protestant, you are either a Calvinist or an Arminian, one or the other. No way out of it. So when you talk to me about being a Calvinist, yes, I'm a proud Calvinist. And most people cannot argue for 2 minutes with a Calvinist who knows what the Word of God teaches. Because it's true. Now, there are lots of things that Calvin held to that I don't believe. Calvin had about 10 or 15 things that he still clung to from the Catholic Church. But that's where he came from. That's where Martin Luther came from. So it would be difficult to sort of abandon a lot of these things that were so hard that they believed for so many years. But in terms of his place in the history of the church, he is a solid footstool upon which we today ought to be building on. So I'm proud of that. But I'm sure that most people, like the person that makes this comment, have no idea what Calvin actually taught, what he actually believed. They just parrot other people. Be provoked and be persuaded.